He guardian of the reverse world. The boy who became the storm. Part 1. When Ash and Pikachu opened their eyes, they knew they were no longer on Earth. The sky was an eerie blue and silver. Clouds of silver, purple and black were scattered throughout the horizon. With them came the large floating land mass and rocks, some twisting and turning in unnatural ways. The most prominent part were the disfigured and twisted buildings that merged with giant crystals. It was as beautiful as it was otherworldly. But nothing to compare to this sight. Before the human and the Pikachu was a great onyx serpent crested with gold armor and black tendrils branching from its back. Black and red eyes stared at them knowingly. They have met before, twice in fact. This was the guardian of the reverse world, master of dimensions. Giratina. Slowly Ash got up with Pikachu jumped on his familiar spot on his shoulder. They felt the heaviness of their task hang in the very air of this place. Nearly 3 months ago, they would have been unable to bear it. But now was different. They, his team, Pikachu and himself, have become far stronger than before. This time, they were different. But there's still things that were the same. It's been a while since we seen each other, hasn't it? Ash grinned, looking kindly at the legendary. Hi Pika. Pikachu waved at it as well, following his trainer's lead in just being themselves. Giratina tilted its head. This was the same boy that it met back when that human was trying to invade its realm and when the great Arceus went rogue, but this boy was far different from those times. Could humans evolve like a Pokémon? The boy was far different from the other humans in the past. There was a power inside of this boy, once hidden, had now been unleashed. And it roared like a warrior in his soul. But before it was kindness, not the warrior it had been expecting by instinct. Not a challenger that had been calling for a battle, only someone who radiated warmth and offered a pathful life. This boy with the Pikachu was dangerous, for a force inside of this human that made this ancient Pokémon want to be with the boy. To follow him. But, as an ancient Pokémon, Giratina wanted to see this boy's strength before deciding if he was truly worthy. Ash continued to talk gently to the renegade Pokémon. Seems like you've been expecting us. Can't say I know how or why I came here, but I guess we have been just calling to each other some way. Pika. The electric type agreed. Slowly they approached the legendary with Ash slowing, reaching up to touch the crest of the serpent. He paused, waiting to see if this was okay with the legendary. Petting legendaries tend to not to a common thing. But despite of how scary people would find Giratina's void eyes, they were friendly and Ash took that to place his hand on the golden crest. Surprisingly it was warm instead of a cool metal. So, if you expected me and Pikachu to be here, I guess you also know why we are here too, huh? He walked back, feeling his muscles tense up by instinct. He felt Pikachu mimic his actions, such was the bond between them. So I ask you, may I Ash Ketchum challenge, for the right of being on my team, to train you and be your friend. The last part took the legendary off guard. Friend. It almost didn't recognize that word, but it suited its relationship to this human who showed it kindness, how didn't fear its nature and offered it a hand to the light. Would it accept this challenge to be under the hand of this human? Instead of nodding, Giratina reared back and let out a massive screech that echoed throughout the reverse world. And to respond, Pikachu's cheeks sparked and the feral grin Ash had grown so fond of stretched across his face. His eyes became blue with aura flaring for battle. The wild Giratina accepts your challenge. Ash wiped out a Pokéball and immediately threw it down to reveal his first Pokémon. Snorlax. The sleeping Pokémon crashed down and ready to fight. It stared down the legendary through its squinting eyes. Giratina struck first, using Shadow Force. Yet it passed right through Snorlax. Ash blinked for a moment, registering what happened. That must have been a Ghost-type move, that meant Giratina was Ghost-type. Dang, that rules out Snorlax's Body Slam. That was his most powerful move. But that didn't deter him from using his Pokémon. Giratina struck again with Will-O-Wisp in his mouth. But this time Ash ordered a dodge even though he knew that his normal type ability, thick fat, would lessen the damage. But he couldn't afford any damage. Without effort, Snorlax smoothly dodged the fire attack. Charge and use Ice Punch. Ash ordered. With speed that wasn't common to his species, the sleeping Pokémon charged forward to the legendary Ea, opening up its head plates to form a glowing blue sphere. Ash's aura spiked, telling him this was Aura Sphere. A fighting-type move, super effective against a normal type like Snorlax. He had to act quick. Snorlax, jump and undercut with your Ice Punch. Snorlax did just that, flipping over the Aura Sphere and came close the Giratina. Yet as the Ice Punch threw up Giratina's head, the Ghost type managed to launch another Aura Sphere right in his face. Giratina cringed at the Ice type move. Snorlax was thrown back. He stayed strong though. It was for his trainer's sake that he remained as much as he could in this battle. You're doing great, Snorlax. Pika Pika Pika. Ash and Pikachu cheered. Snorlax. He wiped the pain off and was ready to make his next move. Ash was practically shifting his feet in anxiety, waiting for Giratina to make his next move. So far he determined Giratina's other type, Dragon, so he still had Fire Punch would not do as much. However, Ice Punch and the fact he had an Ice-type Pokémon still in his pocket as well as a Dragon-type with a powerful Dragon-type move would be of use. And from what he could determine of Larvitar's hidden power, which was Dark Pulse, would be of use for the ghost part of Giratina. Now jump on Giratina's back and hammer away with Ice Punch. Snorlax. Once again Snorlax charged forward, but this type Giratina was quicker and smacked away the normal type with Dragon Claw. It sent Snorlax sliding on his paws. Keep it. Ash urged on. But this time another Aura Sphere managed to smack the sleeping Pokémon, but somehow Snorlax kept on running and got onto the Serpent's back. He followed his trainer's orders and began to slam down several Ice Punches. Giratina winced each time one landed. Creepily enough, it was able to twist its head around and landed another Aura Sphere into Snorlax's face. It knocked Snorlax off, but not before landing another Ice Punch that sent Giratina flying down the abyss. Landing on its back, the normal type slowly got up, but obviously struggling. Ash was beginning to worry that his most powerful type was being whittled down. But Giratina was not seen. Snorlax, rest to recover your injuries. Snorlax nodded, agreeing that was a good idea. A warm golden glow enveloped him as he sat down to fall asleep. But Ash should have known better, for emerging from the thick black aura of Shadow Force to teleport, Giratina launched a barrage of Aura Spheres that all hit the sleeping Pokémon. Almost in a peaceful way Snorlax fainted sitting down. Giratina roared, showing how it was not at all affected by the blows Snorlax landed on it. So after Ash recalled his Pokémon and whispered through the Pokéball that he did a great job, he gritted his teeth, knowing that the battle was far from over. It was just beginning. Back in the normal world. From the Battle Frontier's ship, safely hidden from prying eyes, the Frontier Brains and Scott stared from where Ash and Pikachu departed. With the sky gray and the wind blowing fiercely in their faces. Their faces expressionless, yet inside they were anxious for the outcome. How long would it take for Ash to succeed? Would he succeed of his first try? Why did Oho lead them to Sinnoh? Which legendary would Ash befriend? This question always bothered the Frontier Brains when one of the apprentices went out on these quests. Anabel was the most worried. She was the youngest of the Frontier Brains and one of the newest to the system. She wanted to prove that she was a good teacher, but still. Did she prepare Ash enough? Did she do a good job training him? And, as pathetically as it sounded, she already missed his presence. For nearly 3 months they had been with each other every day, training and laughing together when one of them did something silly. This would take some time getting used to when the Battle Frontier season started and they had to man their own stations for the challengers. But she was strong and she would get used to it. Her feelings eased when she felt Espeon nudged against her legs and her two beasts rested their heads on her shoulders. But the future would have to wait. Right now, the present was her main concern. In Kanto. It's been a while since we've seen Ash's friends. And so far there had been more people added to the party. Brock, May and Max had come across the group along their travels to deal with Ash Ketchum and why he hadn't contacted them. May and Max were more offended than Brock. Yet still the future Pokémon doctor was curious why Ash hadn't notified him if he had gone to a new region. It was odd. So, for their respected reason, joined Misty, Dawn, Barry and Zoe to Pallet Town. But let's figure out to how they came across each other. Flashback. Traveling for several days, they finally reached Pewter City. Of course they visited the Pokémon Center to heal their Pokémon. Having Pokémon, it was good to train during the path and came across several aggressive Pokémon on their way. But they're more familiar faces. Eagerly a boy with glasses tugged at his sister's shirt to grab her attention. Max, what is it? She noticed who her brother was pointing to, some people she was glad to see. Yet disappointed that a certain trainer wasn't with them. Both she and the younger boy waved at them. Hey, long time no see. May called to them. The group turned and all smiled seeing May. Misty was the first to come toward them. Oh, May and Max. It's nice to see you guys. Dawn was next. What are you guys doing here and who is this little fellow? Max smiled and the pretty girl. My name is Max and I'm May's sister. The Hoenn coordinator ruffled his hair. This guy just turned 10 and is now a full-fledged Pokémon trainer. He's here training for the Kanto League in the next few months. Max's glasses gleamed. Yep. I'm here to start like our friend Ash since he began here as well. I'm going to be the best there is in the Kanto League. I'm here to scout around Pewter City since this is the first place that most trainers start. May smiled, both being proud of her brother and amused at his arrogance. Also, I'm here for the Vermilion Cities conference, but I guess you could have already figured that out. She grinned sheepishly, knowing that two of the girls were coordinators like her. Dawn and Zoe smiled. That will be great. It will be awesome to see you compete again. Zoe said. So what are you guys doing? This isn't the way to Vermilion. May asked. Misty answered. Well, apparently a certain trainer of ours probably been here for over 2 months. So we want to see what's up. May and Max perked at seeing Ash again. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. It will be nice to see how he is doing. Yeah, I could probably challenge him to a Pokémon battle. Max smirked at the prospect. Everyone's sweat dropped at the fact that Ash was 4 years superior to the newly started out trainer. Hey, isn't this where Brock lives? Dawn asked, suddenly remembering that Brock said he had come from here. Misty thought about it. Oh yeah, I guess since Brock had been traveling with Ash he would be at his gym right now. We should go see him. Maybe get the whole gang together. May suggested. Everyone nodded, agreeing it was a good idea, and headed to Brock's house first. Once inside, Misty was bombarded with Brock's many siblings, recognizing here from Ash's adventures. Brock instantly went to see what the commotion was about and grinned when he saw his friends. Hi everyone. What's going on? Brock had changed a little bit, his hairs being longer and a little stubble growing from his chin. He was wearing a orange shirt with olive green cargo pants. He's based off of his heart gold and soul silver design like Misty. Everyone waved. We were passing by and wanted to see you, Misty said. Instead of continuing on, Brock suggested they go to the gym to get away from his rowdy siblings. Once there, the only one in the gym was Forrest, who was the current leader of it. He waved but went back to his work training his Geodude. I see, so Ash hasn't been in contact. He has been awfully quiet. You would think he would at least say hi to his friends when he got here. Misty huffed. Brock nodded. I can see why you would want to go to Pallet Town then. Would you like to join us? Dawn chirped. I know you're studying to be a Pokémon doctor and all that, but it would be nice if we had everyone together. Brock smiled. Sure, why not? In fact, I had been worried about Ash. He seemed a bit down since we left Sinnoh. This was news to May and Max, who were surprised that Ash had the ability to feel depressed. Why would he be like that? Max asked. Brock shrugged. I really don't know. If anything, I guess it would be his defeat with Tobias, but it is strange that he's never been bothered by defeats before. This was bewildering to the group, and now even more determined to go to Pallet Town to see what is up with the Pikachu trainer. Could this be the reason why he hasn't kept in touch with them lately? Brock packed up, taking several Pokémon Doctor books with him, and bided his family goodbye. End of flashback. It had been a day since, and progress had been slow since they had so many with them. Still, it was fun chatting and asking each other about their experiences. It would take about another week to get to Ash's home. Little did they know that their dear friend would not be there, or even in this dimension. Never would they imagine Ash and Pikachu were currently battling for their destiny against a legendary Pokémon. And imagine their surprise that Ash of all people would choose to join the battle frontier to become a frontier brain. It was going to be a shock for sure. Ash's next Pokémon was Gabite. Dig was out of the question since Giratina's levitation had it good bit off the ground. It was like with Snorlax having only 3 no-2 moves, since Rock Smash was a fighting type move to use, but like before, this would not stop our hero. Cut to the chase. Ash growled, feeling bloody pumping through his veins. Draco Meteor with Dragon Pulse Gabite. Quickly, Gabite launched the powerful Dragon-type move. But now that Gabite was susceptible to it, Giratina used Shadow Force to knock him back. And then flowed between the powered-up falling meteors. None hit, and using Dragon Claw launched Gabite in the air. Ash was quick to react. Aimed down to use Draco Meteor with Dragon Pulse again. Gabite. Due to the short distance, only one shot of powered-up Dragon Meteor struck Giratina, but since it was a super effective move, it managed to send the legendary down on the ground. It quickly got up and circled around the smaller dragon type and landed an Aura Sphere on him. Ash ordered a counter with Rock Smash. This sorta split the Aura Sphere in two, but still hit the ground type. Good thing ground types weren't affected by fighting types. This caused an glowing smoke, which was a good way to use to an advantage. Dragon Pulse. Ash yelled, wanting to conserve Draco Meteor. Besides, it was quicker to hit Giratina, who was previously testing them, now let lose its full potential. This made it harder to hit and showed Ash that this was indeed going to need his full team. It managed to take it by surprise and hit the legendary, but it didn't deter it in the slightest and used another Shadow Force to knock the cave Pokémon back. Bite. The dragon type growled, feeling a bit more weakened at the powerful move, but still Ash's strength and belief in him kept Gabite going. He shook it off and on his trainer's orders charged at the legendary, but jumped and spread his arms wide open. That was the first moment that Gabite was able to glide. He used a move that Ash hadn't known before but recognized it, Aerial Ace. It stuck Giratina, flinging it off a little. Still, Giratina willed up a Will-O-Wisp and shot it at the still flying Gabite. Ash tried to have his Pokémon dodge it, but being new to the glide, Gabite was still slow and didn't know how to turn. It made the dragon type crash down in the ground and causing an impression in the dirt. Gabite, I know you can get up. Ash was right next to his Pokémon helping him up. This was not an official battle, so he could work next to his Pokémon. He would stand next to his team, and battle with them. That's what he could do. Gabi, Ash grasped his clawed fin and helped stand on his feet. Giratina waited, curious to see the boy helping his Pokémon. Ash began to growl, blood still boiling. The significance of this battle was making him practically feel his Pokémon's instincts and was taking them on. Let's go. Taika. Ga. Ia. Giratina with its own roar responded using Dragon Claw towards Gabite. Aerial Ace to dodge with Dragon Pulse. Gabite did manage to dodge and turned around to shoot the torrent of Draco energy at the legendary. Giratina recovered from his miss, twisted around and shot an Aura Sphere. The two attacks collided in dramatics. However, Giratina was tricky and used Shadow Force to get close to the cave Pokémon. This would be the finishing blow for Gabite, so Ash ordered one last Draco Meteor with Dragon Pulse, combining it with Aerial Ace's speed to add extra force. And always following his trainer's orders to the end, Gabite obeyed, executing the attack in the face of defeat. They were face to face when the attacks landed, and from the clash Gabite fainted back down on the ground. Giratina narrowed its eyes to make sure the opponent was defeated and watched as the human and the Pikachu came up to the Pokémon, telling the other dragon-type encouragement and giving it kindnesses despite of being defeated. The Gabite gave a weak smile and growled affectionately. What was this strange warmth in its violent heart? This boy, were all humans this way besides the intruder of its realm? Why? Why did this boy affect it so? But, a battle was a battle and it still wanted to continue this to see the boy's strength, and while the boy was no doubt strong from the battle so far, there was far more he had to go through. And so Ash called forth his third Pokémon. Bulbasaur. He called out. The seed Pokémon turned to his trainer ready for battle. Ash nodded, staring back up to Giratina. Despite of my defeats I will not back down. I shall not be weak in the face of losing. Defeat teaches me, defeat makes me stronger. With each defeat this battle gives me, I shall grow stronger for each round. Ash thought determinedly. Though most of Bulbasaur's grass attacks won't do much damage to a dragon type, but there were some moves he taught his longest ally recently. Bulbasaur, wait. Muscles tensed in both human and Pokémon, waiting for the legendary to attack. Blue flaring eyes watched the serpent slide and hover in the air. It was waiting too. Giratina was obviously no ordinary Pokémon. It had a violent streak and acted rashly from what he has seen, but it was far more intelligent than most wild Pokémon. And then Giratina vanished. Shadow Force. Bulbasaur, duck and slide forward. Using speed and dexterity, when Giratina appeared to attack, Bulbasaur was underneath its stomach. Venoshock. Purple shards erupted from the grass type's bulb. They rapidly shot against the renegade Pokémon, making it get away quickly to not be hit anymore. Speedily Giratina launched Aura Sphere that hit Bulbasaur, but Ash's Pokémon shook it off. Now it was time to launch some strategy. Begin a sunny day. Glowing gold orb shot from the bulb and exploded in the sky, bathing the reverse world in a foreign sunlight. Giratina was on the offensive, beginning to use Will-O-Wisp against the dual type, using Sunny Day to its advantage. Use the rocks to your advantage. Ash yelled to his Pokémon. Bulbasaur understood using the stagnant and hovering rocks as cover. However, there was an alternative method to Legendary's attacks. Some of the battleground had been covered in blue ethereal flames, making this place hazardous for someone like Bulbasaur. Yet Ash began his attack. Grass not to tie him down. Glowing green and blue, from the ground gigantic blades of grass erupted from the ground beneath the renegade Pokémon, wrapping around and dragging the floating Pokémon down on the ground and damaging it. They were extra strong due to the sunlight. Solar Beam. The powerful grass attack launched speedily and enveloping the legendary in a golden light. The blue flames were getting closer to Bulbasaur though, and Ash could feel the strange hot yet cold heat on his face. The only way Bulbasaur could get out of there was release Giratina from his grass knot trap and get out of there. He didn't like that option, but it was better than Bulbasaur getting hit by a super-powered fire attack. Release and get out of there, Bulbasaur. Ash ordered, hoping that Bulbasaur could escape the escalating flames. However, this was not so, because as soon as the grass knot lessened, Giratina launched another Will-O-Wisp toward grass poison type and off to the rest of the fire. Pikachu Pika. Ah no. Ash thought quickly about this. Use Venoshock to douse the flames. He hoped that since Venoshock was a poison type move, there would at least be a little liquid in the attack to at least extinguish some of the heat. Bull. It was hot and Bulbasaur felt he had been burned. He barely heard his trainer's orders from the roar of the fire, but managed to pull it off. It wasn't the liquid though that got rid of the flames, but instead the gust and force of the attack to blow them away. He leapt out, landing safety on a high rock away from the Ash could see there was black burns on his grass-type stubby legs. Great, just what he needed. A time limit on this round of the battle. And he knew that Giratina would not fall for the grass knot solar beam combo. So he would have to improvise, especially since Sunny Day would wear out soon. Launch a solar beam followed by Venoshock. He was starting to combine attacks. The weight of the situation had made it hard to adjust to his usual strategy. But now that his unorthodox strategy was back and he was going to pelt the legendary with it. Giratina wanted to see his strength, then he would use every ounce of it. The combo attack took on a strange look. The normally golden beam of solar beam had violet jagged streak in it. And it did indeed hit the dragon ghost type. Yet like always Giratina stayed thorough and began once again to use Shadow Force to the recovering from burned Bulbasaur and started to copy Ash's technique of combining attacks. It used Will-O-Wisp combined with the Shadowy Force. It knocked Bulbasaur back and circled higher in the air so not to be pulled down by Grass Knot. Once again Ash ran up to his Pokémon and helped the tremendously weakened Grass type up. Him gently grabbing Bulbasaur's stomach and Pikachu helping by helping the head. Pika Pick A. Pikachu's paws nudged the nearly fainted Pokémon awake, telling his friend to stay strong, to keep the battle up. This wasn't a matter of beating a team or even a normal battle, they had to just weaken Giratina as much as they could. Soar, soar, the seed Pokémon panted. However, Ash saw how much pain and fatigued Bulbasaur was. And even if the grass type managed to muster up what little its strength it had left, the status effect burn would finish him off soon. He had to, what the gym leader Price said long ago is, throw in the towel. Bulbasaur, he smiled gently. Great job. Now rest. It looked like Bulbasaur was about to protest, but seeing his trainer's eyes, soon fainted to drift off to sleep in his arms. Recalling him back to his Pokéball, Ash sighed looking desperately at Pikachu. Pikapi. Pikachu had nothing to say. What could you say in the face of a legendary to what it seems they couldn't beat? Once again sighing, Ash stood up and feeling more determined than ever. He could feel his fallen Pokémon weariness and feel the anxiety of the ones yet to come. Pikachu was the most distressed because he could see what was going on in the battle. But they had to pull through. Over the months the thought of being a frontier brain had become more and more appealing. Especially since he found out what the battle frontier really is. A force for justice. A friend to all Pokémon and humans. And a family. He wanted to make them proud, to repay the faith they had in him. He wanted Anabel to be proud of him too. So, he would never give up. Even if he had to fight Giratina himself, he would always continue fighting for his friends, his Pokémon and his dream to become a Pokémon master and a battle brain. And so with determined eyes staring at the serpent in respect and defiance, Ash would finish this. He guardian of the reverse world. The boy who became the storm Part 2. 2 months and 17 days after the initiation. Still in the reverse world and down 3 Pokémon, Ash continued his standoff with the legendary Pokémon Giratina. Though his Pokémon, Snorlax, Gabite and Bulbasaur had all fought bravely but alas fell to the great power of the legendary. Now Ash was down to the last 3 of his team. Glalie the ice type. Larvitar the rock ground type. And his forever faithful starter and buddy, Pikachu the electric type. He only had 3 rounds to finish off Giratina or. Now's not the time to worry about the future. The present is now. Ash snarled in his mind. Larvitar. You next. He threw down his next Pokéball down and out came his newest member. Of course, like anyone who was still inexperienced to new places and especially seeing the ominous legendary for the first time would be nervous. Larvitar was tempted to harden at the sight of the great serpent, but he quickly looked at his trainer's face and seeing how determined he looked at looking at Larvitar for such dependence gave the rock-skinned Pokémon the courage not to. Larvitar. It roared as loud as its tiny lungs allowed it. Ash nodded in approval of Larvitar's will. Let's go. Giratina let out another shriek in attempt to intimidate the small Pokémon, but Larvitar felt his trainer's will and stayed true. Larvitar use Stone Edge. Ash commanded first. It was best to keep Giratina guessing what moveset that his Pokémon had. Larvitar had 2 Dark-type moves and it was best to keep them on reserve. Red glowed around his youngest Pokémon and sharp rocks shot up from the ground and towards the legendary. They seemed to be faster than what Ash remembered from training on the ship. Yet Giratina was faster. Just a bit though. Apparently some damage had managed to affect the legendary. Ash kept that in mind. Giratina moved in to use Aura Sphere and while he was ordering Larvitar to dodge he came up with a possibly good move set. It wasn't going to be pretty but this should work. He covered his ears and beckoned Pikachu to do the same. Larvitar used Screech. Surprised but followed through with the move. It was ear-piercing, coupled with the wide open space of the reverse world made Giratina wither in pain. And this is what Ash wanted. Quickly, run with you Stone Edge and follow up with Crunch. Larvitar rushed almost as fast as the rock-type move and did indeed latch his teeth on the legendaries. He was quickly flung off though by Dragon Claw. With a flip, the rock-skinned Pokémon landed on his feet. However, Ash winced at the close combat move just used. Though Larvitar was strong, his constitution was limited. He would have to be careful with his time and using Larvitar to a certain way. Hit hard and fast. Larvitar. Hidden power. Ash ordered. Larvitar, being the newest member, wasn't used to combining attacks and making new techniques to get it more powerful. He would have to do things simply to weaken Giratina. Dark rings shot towards said Pokémon however, taking initiative that fighting-type moves were powerful against dark types countered with Aura Sphere and dispersed the hidden power move. Using Shadow Force, Giratina struck Ash's Pokémon with a ghost-powered tail. This made the rock-skinned Pokémon crash all the way back to his train. Ash gritted his teeth in worry. It was a powerful move and Larvitar wasn't used to being against such power. But Ash had to make do. Besides, Larvitar did have the advantage of having 2 moves that were super effective against Giratina. He just had to be fast enough to land them. Get up and wait for my signal. Defensive would be the best method right now. The rock skin understood. Meanwhile, Pikachu stood looking at the results and how the battle was going so far, and something told him in his little gut that he would have to battle the legendary. Giratina watched carefully, aware what the human was trying to do. But if it was supposed to be attacking, then that's what it would do. Aura Sphere was the next move used, and was zooming in close to the ground, making a path that cleared away the otherworldly dirt and grass. Larvitar braced himself for the attack, however Ash had other plans. Dodge now. Use your weight to fling yourself out of the way. Ash had said before the fighting-type move got halfway to Larvitar. Said Pokémon flung himself away, making him tumble fast. Hidden power. Using the momentum gained by the dodge, the black rings came faster to the renegade Pokémon than expected. It struck and helped lower the legendary's health. But as Ash knew by now, super effective attacks were only somewhat useful in this battle than in a normal one. Giratina retaliated though, with another Aura Sphere, and it did manage to nab Larvitar right in the chest, winding the small Pokémon. Our hero could feel cold sweat drip down his face with worry. He didn't want his Pokémon to go down this fast. Come on Larvitar. I know you're still new to being part of my team, but I've seen your strength back when you were even a baby. Show me how much you've improved. Pika Pika Pika. Pikachu cheered alongside his trainer. He was weak and the attacks from this big Pokémon were far strong than anything his mama ever threw at him while training. But, if his trainer could believe he could, then he would do it. After all, he was the one who showed him how much warmth the world had. Larvitar. On his own command, surprising both Ash, Pikachu and Giratina, launched himself to crunch down on the legendary on his own. Ash took this shock to his advantage. Hidden power. He called out to his Pokémon. Right before Giratina hit Larvitar with another Aura Sphere, the strange normal type turned dark type move made a direct hit. The rock-skinned Pokémon was unfortunate enough to also get a direct hit. But for a remarkable reason managed to pull through despite of having been weakened so much. Yet the watchers on the sideline knew that one more hit landed and then that was the end. But Ash learned that Larvitar wasn't much of a waiter in battle, so he had to use his rock-ground type speed to get the upper hand while it lasted. Screech again. Ash and his starter immediately covered their ears once he gave the order. This time Giratina was prepared, slithering across the air to the little pseudo-legendary trying its best to ignore the terrible scream. Ash then yelled out for Larvitar to dodge and then retaliate with Stone Edge, the move being faster than hidden power and thus would not slow Larvitar down. Shards of rock showered down on the legendary, yet continuing in its pursuit to get nearer to the human's Pokémon. Ash didn't like this one bit as he knew from personal experience that Giratina can easily cross distances by shadow force. So why was it moving in the physical plane? Was he trying to tire Larvitar out by making him dodge and launch Stone Edge? No, that wasn't it. Ash narrowed his eyes to get a clearer view of the battlefield. And then they widened seeing where Larvitar was standing. Nearby one of the indents in the land from where powerful attacks had hit, Larvitar was standing right on edge near it. Larvitar, run forward. You're standing too close to. The rest of his trainer's words were clouded when Larvitar was struck by Giratina, who swiped him with his tail into the ditch. Then disappearing, it didn't appear directly in front like it normally does, however appeared from the ground of where Larvitar was laying, causing the small Pokémon to fly into the sky by the powerful attack. Once again Ash didn't hesitate to run after his Pokémon who was falling drastically fast. Just before Larvitar hit the ground, he leapt forward and took most of the blow. The impact crushed his lungs, air escaped him and he could feel beneath his clothes his back being scratched and torn back the ground and rubble underneath. He nearly blanked from the impact if not for Pikachu calling for him, giving small shocks through his cheeks. Pika Pika Pika. Pikachu Pikapi. The electric type said, trying to keep his trainer awake. Stupid Ash, always doing stupid and reckless things for friends and complete strangers. Hi, the mouse Pokémon sighed in relief seeing Ash gain focus in his eyes. Both exhaled in sadness seeing Larvitar had fainted in mid-air. Ash felt bad, seeing how this was Larvitar's first battle under his tuition and it was pitted against a foe like no other. The odds were against Larvitar, who was still brand new to the world. I promise, next time we'll have a better battle. Glalie never thought as a Snorunt that he would be facing a legendary. This made the face Pokémon wonder though, did any Pokémon who joined Ash's team expected these adventures that they have gone on? Though being an ice type, fire burned within him watching the legendary hover in the air, still going despite of the massive damage that would have felled 10 Pokémon of his own level. The ice type released a burst of icy breath readying himself. Ash saw the cue and nodded. Let's go, he said, pulling his hat further down. Both Pokémon strikes, one on its own command, the other through his humans. Will-O-Wisp and Shadow Ball faced off. It led to an explosion that covered both Pokémon. But thanks to Aura Sight, this allowed Ash to see the signature energies of the Pokémon through the smoke. Knowing that Giratina could use Aura Sphere, Ash suspected that the legendary could too. So he asked Glalie to trust him, to move around in the smoke at his command, dodging Giratina's attempt at Shadow Force. Clear the area with Gyro Ball. Glalie excelled expectations, not only blowing away cover with the Steel-type move but also managing to land a hit on Giratina. Ash had accepted the fact that his Pokémon will act on their own sometimes, but he trusted their decisions. He then commanded for a blizzard to make a new cover that will not only have Glalie get away from being so close from the renegade Pokémon but also land a super effective ice-type move. It barely managed to hit though, nicking the legendary as Glalie made his way back to his trainer. Giratina had zoomed over preparing Aura Sphere when Ash called forth an ice beam. Shadow Force made the legendary dodge it and get close to let loose the Aura Sphere. Ash had another Euro ball to deflect it, which did disperse it, yet it did hit the ice type. But this was still just the beginning of this round. And like before, Ash had to act quick without giving Giratina a chance to land one of its powerful moves. Again with Euro ball and then use Blizzard. Ash believed that these two attacks would be complements, Euro ball's speed widening and intensifying Blizzard's already potent attack power. However, Giratina managed to launch another Aura Sphere at Glalie. Yet this sacrifice paid off as Blizzard managed to land several hits on the legendary, freezing some parts of the legendary's pointed limbs and back. Ash almost wanted to smile if the battle wasn't so grim. About time something went his way. But now wasn't the time to feel elevated, he had to stay one target. Euro ball again, use that to make a counter shield with Ice Beam. The rapid spinning kept Giratina at bay before the chilling stream of ice was released in arcs. Giratina tried to evade, but its body was far too big to navigate through the thin spaces. Yet another shadow force was able to lead it away from the super effective onslaught. More and more of its body was slowly being covered in ice. If it was in its altered form, then it would be unable to move. Thankfully it had the power of levitation, however it had been slowed down tremendously. Soon in rage, Will-O-Wisp came pouring out in large bright blue and white spheres, combining them with Aura Sphere, something it learned from watching the human during this battle. They had been super-powered with its rage and was released throughout its whole field with burning hot flame, spreading even further with the power of Aura. Ash panicked. Glalie, stop and get out of there. He called out to his Pokémon, trying to keep from touching those burning flames. It was even hotter than Bulbasaur's round. Giratina was truly mad now, and the heat of the fire reflected this. And even worser things yet was the fact that the frozen status was melting off. It began to launch an barrage of Aura Sphere all over the place. Even when trying to avoid the heat from the ground, the Aura Spheres in the air managed to take their hits among Glalie. 1, 2, 3 direct hits landed on Glalie. Ash watched, wondering what to do. There was so much movement it was hard to focus. And since the flames were infused with aura and it was hard to see with his aura sight on, he shut it off, leaving his eyes back to the dual colors. Everyone's movement seemed lost faster, thus leaving him without edge. Fine then. If he couldn't see, then neither would Giratina. Glalie, if you have enough strength left, use every single blizzard you have, use everything. Euro ball to extend it, Ice Beam to power it up. Ash knew this was foolhardily, but he knew it in his gut that his ice type would only able to withstand one more attack, and that was not counting the status effect burn on it. I'm sorry. But this is the only way I can think of. Ash yelled out, apologizing for straining so much strength in his Pokémon. Glah. Lie. Glah. The face Pokémon understood and willed up what was left of its strength. He began to will his icy power to expand, beginning with Euro Ball, then immediately Blizzard, releasing the Ice Beam. Then after, snow and giant chunks of hail were beginning to form in a giant sphere around Glalie. And despite of their power, the aura spheres were bouncing off of it. And the extra residue from the snowstorm sphere were extinguishing the flames. Soon the strange ice attack was even bigger than the renegade Pokémon. Pika. Go. And the Hyper Blizzard crashed into Giratina, who was still caught up in its rage to notice what had happened. Soon it was engulfed to the raging storm of white with nothing visible left. There was a howling gale, that was all the noise left from the battle. Both Glalie and Giratina lost in the storm, there was nothing to indicate what was going on. The whole area felt freezing, and Ash felt his marrow ice over just sitting still. Then he remembered that he could use Aura Sight again since the aura flames subsided. But when he finally turned them on, the snow sphere storm subsided and two Pokémon fell out. First Giratina, whose body slowly slid out and drooped oddly in the air. Last was Glalie, who fell down like a lead weight. Ash sighed seeing Glalie fainted and Giratina still conscious. He was getting frustrated, the fatigue of his whole team was pressuring down on him through their bond. He recalled his Pokémon. It felt like he himself was fighting this battle himself. But now he was down to the last member on his team. Pikachu. Ash looked to his lifelong buddy. Pikachu. Pikachu mirrored the serious look on his trainer's face. It was up to him then. The final resort to beating Giratina. Who knew how much strength Giratina had left, but no matter what, it could not be underestimated no matter what. Even when it was down to the very last hit, Giratina could easily dispose of any Pokémon at any level. Pika. Electricity sparkled from his cheeks, show that he was ready. Ash nodded. Good. Words had been lost on these two, they needed to save their strength for what was next. Giratina turned slowly to them, eyeing its next opponent. The abnormally strong Pikachu. It didn't say anything at all, it too conserving strength. The residue from Glalie makeshift snowstorm was falling on the ground, a fine snow was falling in the field. The blue glow of the reverse world gave the snow a mystic glow, and it would have been distracted if any trainer didn't have aura sight. Volt Tail. Huge amounts of bright lightning surrounded Pikachu faster than had previously attempted. The mouse Pokémon leapt high and above the legendary and came straight down with an Volt Tackle electricity-charged Iron Tail. Giratina countered with Dragon Claw, both squaring off in terms of power. Pika. Pikachu add more charge to his voltage to make the force against Giratina more powerful. Yes, the after effects would hurt Pikachu, but this wasn't a matter of having the last Pokémon standing, it was about show Giratina that they were, together, more powerful enough to beat it. The extra power actually managed to send the legendary flying. Pikachu didn't even land on his paws before Ash gave the next call to attack. Thunderbolt followed by Iron Tail. Pikachu. Pikachu moved with the lightning that was emitting from both his cheeks and conducting around his iron-plated tail. The charge stirred up the snow and wrapped around Pikachu, leaving a stormy wake in place of the electric type. Giratina growled, before releasing its newly learned Aura Will-O-Wisp in Pikachu's path. Pikachu saw the impact coming towards him and started to scoot from the attack, great amounts of static emitting off of him and creating steam from the snow. Pikachu, it will hurt, but defect it with your Iron Tail. Ash commanded. Ka-Chu Pika. The electric type used the momentum of the slippery snow to slide across the plane and added it to the force or Iron Tail. However, this was not enough to deflect a fighting type, fire type move with a steel type, and thus sent Pikachu sliding on his back. Pikachu was still as sharp though, and landed back on his paws. Keep going, Ash said. He had to go through with raw power this time. Giratina was in a state found in very feral, still thinking, but feral. Raw power was emitting from the legendary, and unless he could come up with a strategy that could neutralize that power, then he would have to retaliate back with the same brutal force. Pikachu skirted across the snow, gaining speed, creating friction and thus allowing more electricity to be generated from it. Static was rummaging all around his fur and started to generate electrical currents on the snow. Iya! Giratina shrieked mightily, feeling the electricity emitting from the ground, trying to reach up to harm it. Using Shadow Force, it appeared behind from Pikachu. Its Shadow Aura was used to attack Pikachu, however the electrical field surrounding the mouse Pokémon harmed it as well. Quick attack it with that field. Ash had Pikachu use that normal type move for the extra speed, even though it wouldn't normally hurt a ghost type, but from the electrical current passing through Pikachu charged it with the power of thunder. The two bounced off of each other, neither giving the other an edge. Ash gritted his teeth, looking everywhere for something that could give him an edge. Inwardly he sighed. It's always like this with legendaries, you can never find something when you need it. It's just like that time with Latios, and something sparked in his mind. Recalling a tactic that helped with that battle, he knew Pikachu would be able to this. Nowhere as weak as he was with the battle with Tobias, this should work. Pikachu. Roll tactic. Keep discharging that Thunderbolt and get on Giratina's back. Ash watched how Pikachu barely just nodded before dodging a Dragon Claw released by Giratina. It stirred up the snow and thus gave Pikachu the chance to use its little body's speed to spin right on top on the renegade Pokémon's backside. Pikachu was tiny compared to Giratina and thus the legendary was confused as to where the electric type had gone, not feeling him on its body. It was hard to feel anything from its body right now as pulses of electricity were vibrating though it so much that it was hard to tell where it was coming from. Volt Tail. Normally it would be impossible to pull off a Volt Tackle at a standstill, but Ash had been training Pikachu to start any of his attacks at a second notice to surprise any opponent. So this seemed like another perfect situation to do it. Giratina screeched, feeling a sharp and hot pain digging right in its back from where its tendrils sprung up. From the corner of its red eyes it could see the Pikachu had slammed and wedged its tail right in that joint, discharging an abnormal amount of electricity within it. In a desperate attempt to rid itself of the miniature generator, Giratina slammed its back on the ground. Pikachu unfortunately loosened its grip on Giratina and took difficulty getting back up. However, from what Ash noticed is that Giratina was hardly an foot above the ground. He was weakened. A few more hits. But the same could be said for Pikachu. Pikachu, you need to get up. Ash yelled out. I need you to counter shield. The electric type was trying to get up, before an aura sphere was launched right into his body. Chew, that was a powerful attack, knocked the breath out of him. However, the next attack that was shot, Pikachu somehow used that extra force to send him into the position of counter shield. Soon that electricity started to spark in wide arcs, making it impossible to land any aura spheres or fit into it using shadow force. Giratina tried to back away, but the lighting seemed to follow the legendary everywhere as if homed into its body signature. This leads to the fact that Noland, while at the battle tower, told Ash some interesting facts about electromagnetic fields he could create with Pikachu and how you can create almost any Pokémon, sans ground types, into a lightning rod. Awesome job. Ash cheered on. Iron Tail to focus your energy in the counter shield. Soon the smaller bolts of electricity merged into a gigantic one emitting into the sky from Pikachu. It arced over to Giratina, the electricity turning from yellow to blue over how much power was being put forth. The renegade Pokémon thrashed around trying to escape the field. Volt Tackle for the last time. Ash said, knowing that Pikachu was running out of power soon. They had to finish this in one big bang. Pikachu got up from the counter shield, feeling drained. But he had to do this one last move quickly before Giratina stopped thrashing and being distracted by the attack. Pikaaa. He leapt far above any obstacle and aimed right at Giratina's head. Chew. In a climatic encounter that was surrounded by a bright light, both Pokémon were sent flying out it. Pikachu plastered on the ground as well as Giratina. Ash let a sigh of relief seeing Pikachu get up. A familiar screech took the wind out of his lungs, though, immediately being followed by the disappearing act of shadow force. Pikachu, get out of there. Ash said as everything went into bullet time due to his brain being overworked. Pikachu was far too weak and distracted by Ash's voice to realize that Giratina had struck. It reappeared in a flow of purple and black, and since its most powerful attack made a direct hit on the weakened Pikachu. Do I really need to tell you what happened? Pikachu. Ash managed to catch Pikachu from the air. Once in his arm, the small guy could hardly keep conscious, and Giratina, though on its last breath, was still going. Did this mean? I narrowed down. The aura sight no longer flaring but solidifying his eyes to a near complete blue. While catching Pikachu, his hat had fallen off, and then he placed his starter inside of it, covering him with his sleeveless jacket. The trainer's steps crunched in the leftover ice and snow. He felt the lightning-charged ground through his shoes, but he kept on walking towards the legendary. He felt a low rumble from Giratina. It wasn't threatening but questioning. You know something? Ash started to speak. In a normal battle, in the other world, if all 6 of my Pokémon were to faint, then I would lose the battle. But, over the past few months I found out that there is more to just Pokémon on part of a team. He got into a fighting stance with aura spheres glowing in both of his hands. And that means I'm part of it too. He roared. I challenged you to a battle my team, and that means my Pokémon and me. I stand besides my Pokémon and nothing will change my mind. Giratina was no less to say shocked at this new development. A human dares to take place battling a legendary Pokémon. That power glowing in his hands though, that was another story. However, this human. It was foolhardily, insane, stupid. But that what he was all about. He was Ash Ketchum after all, hot-headed and rash. He did these things all the time. Without question or indication he launched the aura spheres at Giratina. Before tackling the weakened legendary over the edge of the landmass. He had taken the legendary by surprise as they went falling from sky. Acting on instinct, Giratina launched Will-O-Wisp at Ash, who took the blow with his arm, ignoring the sting and flames. The trainer was about to launch another aura sphere interrupted by the impact of the ground. It flung him off the legendary making him tumble along the ground. He could feel cuts marking his skin as the rocks dug themselves in. He got up though not bothering to take care of himself. But he halted his own battle seeing the legendary's face right in front of his. Ash didn't move, instead braced himself for an attack but felt nothing. Giratina didn't attack, instead, he saw that its body had been resting on the ground, looking like it was about to pass out. So instead of retaliating, Ash held out his arms and though it was almost larger than his body, was able to hold Giratina's head. It was heavy enough to send him right on his bottom, sitting on the ground. Ash realized he could hardly breathe. All his Pokémon who had fainted, their exhaustion had been affecting him. Didn't help he tried to battle a legendary itself, and fell 2 stories worth of height. Ah geez. Sorry. Ash said to the beat-down legendary. He could see one of its large red and black eyes turn his way. Guess I kinda got caught up in the heat of battle. Pretty foolish of me trying to take you on. Didn't know you were this tired too. He grinned apologetically. Ash watched as one of the red-tipped, black tendril come and touch his forehead. You're brave. Ash blinked. Telepathy. He thought. Some call it foolhardily. Ash kinda laughed. No one is considered sane doing what I just did. What do you think? Ash didn't know what to think. I wanted to show to myself actually, that I was stronger than when I first started out. You? Yeah. Ash smiled. I think so. He let off a heavy breath, looking back at Giratina. It's funny. Never in my life, especially when I started my journey as a Pokémon trainer and I even saw Ho-Oh, would I ever expect to fighting a legendary Pokémon with my own hands. Heck, I would have never have thought to even met someone like you. So, thank you Giratina. Ash said, beginning to pet around the crest of the legendary. This was so surreal. He, Ash Ketchum, was petting a gigantic legendary, with cuts and burns on him from fighting it just a second ago. It felt natural. So natural in fact that he let the legendary pick him up and take them back to the landmass that the original battle took place. Both were tired and weary but there was a mutual respect for each other. Giratina waited on the ground as Ash went to retrieve Pikachu in his arms. Coming back, in his hand, he was fingering about a Pokéball. He had decided he would let the renegade Pokémon decided the outcome. Ash didn't want to fail, to be delayed, but sometimes, there were things you weren't ready for, whether it was winning a Pokémon League or even something as big as capturing a legendary Pokémon. In his heart he wanted to believe he was ready. That he could achieve the next step in his life. It wasn't a step he was expecting but still in was something. Yeah. He was close to the renegade Pokémon. It was there waiting for him. Without thinking about it he held up the empty Pokéball. He didn't say anything, just waited. 1 second. 2 seconds. 4 seconds. A minute. A minute lasted until Giratina put its heads forward until it hit the button on the Pokéball, and a strange white light enveloped it and went absorbed. Light enveloped the entire area, Ash and Pikachu as well. When Ash opened his eyes, he was laying on the shore of the glacier lake, to where he entered the reverse world. Pikachu, his jacket and hat were resting on the side, and in his right hand resting on the ground was the Pokeball he caught Giratina with. The Pokeball lost its red and white coloration, instead crystallizing into a topaz-like sphere with ridges and facets. It showed what he had done, that he actually accomplished such a task. Ash smiled wearily at the barely conscious Pikachu. "We did it, buddy." Pikachu too could hardly believe it, yet alone stay awake to finish his sentence. But Ash could tell that he had the same happiness. He stared at the sphere in his hands. We did it, we did it." Succumbing to his injuries and mental exhaustion, Ash too passed out. Not 5 minutes have passed when Ash was found. Articuno spotted the trainer and flew right to its friend, Noland, about it. "Found him, guys." Noland called to the rest of the battle frontier through his Pokenavi, who had been in charge of searching the northern part of the path. He pulled Ash out, who was half submerged in the lake, and wrapped him in a safety blanket to prevent hypothermia. His Pokemon Ranger instincts took over and began to check the boy's pulse and the injuries the trainer had sustained. It was nothing serious, mostly exhaustion had been the cause of the collapse. No less than a minute then all the other battle brains, and Scott had showed up and began business. It wasn't an unusual thing that a future frontier brain to get injured trying to keep up with battling a legendary and then passing out from it. Of course, like all things Ash attempts, he went the extra mile and sustained damage to his body more than anyone else had. "Way to go, Ash." No words were spoken, instead taking to the routine of pulling out a stretcher for Ash. Pikachu was carried by Anabel. However, when Noland reached for the Pokeball clutched firmly in Ash's hand. HSSSS's. Noland clutched his hand in pain as a bright red mark showed up. "Fool." Lucy muttered. "You know that happens with legendary Pokeballs to those who are not trusted." Noland grinned. "Hey, proof of concept. Gotta make sure that's the real thing." Scott smiled at Ash. "And that means, we now have our 8th frontier brain." Ash was dreaming, but couldn't see or hear a thing. He felt like he was floating, like a heavy weight had been taken off of his shoulders and he was climbing a mountain with ease. Another mile up. Then he could see. It was kinda dark blue, almost black, but it looked like something golden was opening. And when it did open, it showed a large winding path in front of him. But, no matter how many twists and turns it made, he could see it all down to the very, very far off end. Eyes snapped open, dream forgotten. First thing he saw. Bandages. He sighed with his head flopping back. Crud. I gotta stop getting hurt like this. It was nowhere near as bad as the double hyper beam incident. Mainly it was just his arms wrapped around in gauze and a few bandages on his face. His chest ached a bit, but everything seemed fine. No broken bones, and it didn't seem like he would scar. He was more worried about his Pokémon at the moment. From where he was, he figured that he was back in the Battle Frontier ship. And if he was here already managed up, that means his Pokémon should be in Healing Bay: Gabite, Glalie, Larvitar, Snorlax, Bulbasaur and Pikachu. Wait. He just had another one, and it's. Quickly he looked around until his eyes laid on a golden topaz Pokeball that was resting on a cushion on his nightstand. He hesitated only a little bit, before grabbing it and looking at it closely. It reflected light so strangely, like almost made it look blue reflecting off of the gold. In fact, Ash tilted it a bit, it looked like there were red eyes staring back onto him. Mystifying, isn't it? A voice suddenly said. It surprised him to the point he nearly dropped the Pokeball. Fumbling around for a moment before holding it steady again, Ash turned to see Anabel standing at the door with a fully healed Pikachu in her arms and Espeon at her heels. Pikachu, Pikapi. Pikachu squealed, leaping towards Ash. Oof. Ash winced when the electric type rammed his body into his. Watch it, Pikachu. I'm kinda sore. Ash rubbed his arms. Pie. Pikachu was confused as to why his trainer had been this way, especially how long he had been out. Your trainer thought it would be a good idea to take on a legendary all on his own. Anabel said, bewildered by her own words. Her face was a cross between relief, pride and looking at him like he was a crazy fool. Pikachu! The mouse Pokémon exclaimed so loudly, it looked like he was about to faint again. Ash grinned sheepishly. Yeah, he showed Pikachu the Topaz Pokéball. The Pokémon eyed it carefully, touching it with a paw. But unlike Noland, it didn't burn Pikachu. Even his starter couldn't believe what they have done. It was amazing, Ash said quietly. His dual-colored eyes glowed with warmth. He showed it to Anabel. She didn't touch it, of course, knowing the rules. She did, however, offer a smile. I did it, didn't I, Anabel? Ash asked, his joy akin to a little kid. She blinked. Yes. Yes, you did. She sat down on the foot of his bed, Espeon getting next to her. I'm glad I could have a part in all of this. Ash nodded. I wouldn't have gotten this far without you. He outstretched his hand to hers with Pikachu leaping to her shoulders. What you've helped me with was greater than you would possibly know. Anabel smiled, squeezing his hand in appreciation. Thank you. She got up and grinned brightly. Now you get some rest. You want to be wide awake by the time we get back to land. After all, a frontier brain's work is never done. Especially for our newest member. You need to catch up on the 2 days you slept away.